Priming the oil system of a GM LS engine. First I went ahead, had to clean up and reinstall oil level sensor and the crank position sensor. Reused the O-rings that were in decent shape, took them off with O-ring picks, cleaned them real good. Those are already put away. You can use a little chassis lube or Vaseline. I used this Super Lube Teflon lubricant to put on those to reinstall them, because obviously we don't want the oil coming right back out. The flywheel is not on, starting ring, flex plate, whichever you want to call it. This has got an automatic transmission. The crankshaft has holes all the way through, so obviously there is open to the oil there. I'm not installing this until it's in the engine because I don't want it sticking down here and I bang it on stuff. So I get stuck replacing it. Also, I want to replace the original bolts that are still in good shape with some high quality replacement bolts. Yeah, you get out of that space. I had to replace the oil pressure sensor. I took it loose, don't have the correct socket. And so removed the cam sensor first, got it out the way. It of course is cleaned up and re-lubed O-ring. Here's where the fuel rail connects. That's why it's covered, to keep any dust or insects out of there while the thing's waiting to be installed. Oil pressure sensor, I got it loose enough I was able to turn by hand. Well, and then I kept turning, and next thing I know I'm turning only the plastic because it was old and brittle. It broke. And at some point you'll get an explanation as to this. I made sure to not only put the oil filter on, but this is a GM engine, so for the first run, for the break-in, I bought an AC Delco filter, just like I've got AC Delco plugs. I actually cleaned up and put the old ones in, but I just bought new ones because I didn't like the condition those were. And I think I'm going to pull them back out anyway, to possibly spray a little bit of fuel additive up in there to pre-lube the upper cylinders, because I'm not turning the crankshaft yet. So for that purpose, I may use a little bit of the Berryman, oh goodness, see if we can get the shade on it, B12. I've run out of Schaefer's Neutra. That is great for the gasoline and older diesel engines, not the late model ones with all the electronic injection. But anyway, for the fuel oil system here, I will show what I did and other options. As I said, I'm not putting my balancer on yet because it'll be a lot easier to set down in place, but also I can't torque it yet if I can't hold the starting ring and if it's just sitting on a dolly. My engine stand is out in the field and it was never completed. The thing was started back when I was in high school by someone else, and it's either here in the field or on a farm or something. This is just a four-wheel furniture dolly that's able to handle this 500 pounds sitting on it. And it fits nicely down in there, this LS 5.3 liter does, without the pan. And with it, I got to put the 2x4s underneath and then put a block under the corner over here. One of those or whatever, to make sure it don't tip when I move it, especially on rougher terrain, because all these slabs are not connected. The pump. To prime your oil pump on an LS, if you're only replacing the oil pump, you can take a 3/8 inch rubber fuel hose, just turn it, thread it into the hole after pulling the plug out. It's a metric plug. I don't remember what size these other people say it is. It takes an 8mm. I checked, used 8mm, but I prefer to use ratchets. This is 5/16 because they're almost identical. If I hadn't turned it easily, then I'd have gone and got the 8mm to break it loose and then turned it with this 5/16 and the ratchet. If you're only lubing the oil pump, all you have to do for certain is to, at least the manufacturer recommends to put a funnel in here and pour at least 8 ounces of oil. So others say 16. I would definitely agree with more. When I had to replace and I put a new melting pump on that old block that was removed, of course it was in the vehicle. It was hard to get to. And I had everything put back together first also. So I put a 3/8 hose, but what I did is I took the oil bottle, screwed a spout on it. Let me step around this way. Which is also what I did earlier, just a spout that comes on a different quart bottle, like for your gear oil or something, and stuff it in the end of that rubber hose and squeeze, and every so often, you know, let it catch a little air in the bottle and squeeze it again. And I put half a quart to probably a whole quart in there best as I could to pre-lube that pump, while the rest of the engine was obviously already lubed. On that filter, I did make sure to use lube on the O-ring. Too many people goof up, don't at least put a thin film of engine oil. I prefer to use chassis lube, or like maybe that super lube there, something on the O-ring so it'll seal, but it'll come back loose. You won't crush it trying to take it off. And then because it's a tight position, I didn't only hand tighten it, I turned it about a quarter turn with the wrench. Just a regular filter wrench there. Strap wrenches kind of work, but these metal ones are so much better. Okay, there's different options. Some people say you can use one of these pump things, take the end off, hook your hose to that hole, and have your couple quarts of oil in there, pump it up, or even drill your little hole in there first, run a valve in there, like your valve stem with a Schrader valve in it, to add actual shop air to it. That's an option. Well, mine's got liquid in it that was used, and there's an old one here that's also got liquid in it, so I wasn't going to take that route. Another option, I could have took a little oil transfer pump like this and tried to set it up on there and suck and pump and pump and pump and pump by hand, and try to get 2 quarts in there till the oil would go all the way up to the top. I should have pulled the valve covers off. It's getting late in the day and there's more to do. I had to conjure all this stuff together and put it together. Another option I considered using when looking at other people's videos, including one from one of the engine builders, this is my AC flush canister. I put my AC flush in here. I can hook the air line onto it. Here, this is just temporarily on it, this fitting. Normally, I will take a blowgun and stick it on there. Not necessarily this one, but actually this is the one I used. And so the valve is shut on the end. I connect the air hose to it, and I could have put a little shut-off valve, but I didn't have one handy, so I threaded straight in there with 1/4-inch pipe thread on each end, threaded cap here, you know, got it glued together. So I can put roughly a quart of my AC flush in there, or minimum of 91% alcohol, and got the rope to hold it up in the air attached to the hood or something, and blow into the AC system to blow it out. I could have put my engine oil in there. I didn't really want to have to flush it back out of there afterwards. But also, I had a feeling I may have oil blowing past the threads and past my blowgun and this and that. I wasn't sure how well that was going to work. I'd seen other options available. Here's another one that I didn't necessarily excited. This tool I made is actually for sucking out engine cylinders. Put the tube down in the injector hole or spark plug hole. You normally do not have a plug in here. I've got it plugged just so it'll blow. But have it unplugged. This is a smaller orifice here than this outlet here, so that'll suck. It'll pull a vacuum. It works great for all kind of cleaning purposes or transferring fluid. That was an option. I could have tried to hook a fitting up and blow it into there, but I wasn't really excited about just trying to blow air everywhere and then blow the oil back out of the oil pump into the down in the crankcase and the oil pan. I did manage to find, where are we at? This is actually the correct thread to go in that hole. It's a metric fitting. I believe it's off of a transmission cooler for a General Motors vehicle, or maybe Chrysler. I forget what. Anyway, that would have worked nice. I didn't come up with a fitting to go on the other end. Well, maybe I could have jammed a water hose over it. And considering I used a pump meant to thread a water hose onto, that might have worked nice. I didn't have a clean water hose and I wasn't going to cut a brand new good one and destroy it. Instead, I had already, before I found that, I drilled into these on both ends and then ran 1/4 inch NPT, National Pipe Thread, in order to thread the brass fittings. And then I took my wrench, turned it in here. This old hose was already something I had laying around I used for transferring air. I wasn't too happy with the cleanliness of the end of it, so I cut it off. Throw the dirty part away. Don't contaminate my oil system. I just, gently and carefully drilled into there a drill smaller than the pipe thread fitting right here. And I thought I wasn't going to have two. I considered going 1/8 inch pipe thread, but the hose would have been as small as the one on that blowgun. That would have been too small for suction on that pump and probably wore it out right away. And there was another brass fitting, a 1/4 inch National Pipe Thread. I don't have the specific tool to hold the taps, so I use a good quality adjustable wrench. And when turning, just so that for people who don't already know, whatever direction you're turning, you need to have, where am I at? This side pushing against, to where this is pushing and down here is pushing, instead of pushing out on this tip, so that you don't break it off. Just a little reminder for folks who forgot or just don't happen to know. And for those fittings, I just used some little stubby, nice gear wrenches. Was easy enough. The poor battery went dead because it was already weak. No big deal, whatever. I swapped it out. See how shiny that poor drill is and that pump? I had a pile of rags over here and was holding one against the bottle right about here while holding it up in the air because, yeah, it was slinging oil. Hopefully it didn't get on the phone just now. While I had the end of this actual plastic air hose into one of these bottles. We've got the Valvoline VR1 Racing and Classic Cars engine oil, 10W30. The reason I got this, $10 a quart at O'Reilly, was because it has over 1,000 parts per million zinc. An engine on its first break-in needs zinc. A lot of the diesel engine oil, specifically best is Shell Rotella T4, the conventional oil. It has almost as high a level of zinc as this here VR1. But I wanted to, it's winter time, I wanted to stick with a lighter weight oil in this engine. I may switch to the Shell Rotella T. That's what I use in the Cummins in the 2001 Dodge, the 24 valve. That's what I used in an old big block 454. That's after I quit using Pennzoil because it dropped the exhaust valve and knocked a hole in the piston using that oil. It wasn't lubed well enough. The block I just pulled out, I had switched to synthetic Pennzoil, and then bearings wore out faster. So yeah, I'm gonna take back or sell or give away that darn Pennzoil. Another option, instead of using airline fittings, I could have simply used this brass flare fitting in order to stick it directly in the rubber hose. That I couldn't find my extra, so I snatched that rubber hose off of the engine intake. Actually, it's for the EGR system or something or other. I'll just have to blow it out with a little Blake cleaning air to get the oil out, whatever. Or put brand new would be even wiser. But I wasn't trying to run to town. I've had to stop today and pick up the oil filter that I forgot yesterday when I was getting stuff, or Sunday or whenever it was. But anyway, and what was it? Here's another option to use on the blow gun. It kind of fits snug in that hole. Maybe I could have wrapped it with electric tape and right in there, or into a hose or whatever. Just different options that I've seen from others and stuff I've come up with. You know, I had an extra old piece of hose that was taken off of an air system or steering system or something. I'm going to have to kind of let this oil drain out of here and probably put the end of the hose into a bottle and go ahead and put fresh sealer on the original plug there. Put it back in that hole, snug it down. When I go to putting everything together, I'm probably going to try to look up the torque specs on every single one of these things and actually torque that. But I'm going to make sure I don't over tighten it, of course, when I first install it. On the other hand, not leave it loose either. So I will put a little Teflon on there, and if I had some way to hold the phone, I would show the way that I use Teflon, because some people don't realize if you roll it backwards from what you do any sticky tape, so you put the outside of the tape against your material and you roll it in the direction as if you were threading it onto there, you don't drop it and have it roll across the floor and get dirty and unwind and all that. Some mechanic taught me that years ago, and frankly I should have realized myself, but hey, something else to be thankful for. You'll notice I did go ahead and use an old used hose clamp here to squeeze the rubber hose onto the plastic hose, just to make sure it wouldn't pop off. And normally the 3/8 might not have fit in so snug. Since this hose had been flared out over a metal fitting on the throttle plate assembly and so forth on my intake, it actually fit pretty snug. When I take it off of this other hose and pull it out, I will unthread it. I'm not going to yank it out of there. We're going to try to do things nice and good. As you've noticed, I got the holes covered up. Before I put sensors in, if there wasn't a cover, I put a rag, a cover, or something. I got tape over the exhaust ports, as you noticed, because it's taken a while for me to do this. I don't want insects getting in there. I don't even want dust getting in there. Matter of fact, right here on this valve cover, I'm going to go get an old plastic or rubber cap out of my box that I keep for plugging stuff doing AC work, and I'm going to put it on there. So everybody have a blessed day. I just heard air brakes.